Hey, welcome to 23 Degrees Sideways. Today is a rocking and rolling day and lots of wind and waves here on the boat. So things are going to move around a little bit and you're just going to have to deal with it as usual. Let's make a little minor adjustment here. Well, there we go. You can see my beard now. All right, Blackwater. Ooh. So every time I look at a boat, because we've got this boat, it's a project. I would be more than happy to hand it off to someone else if I found another boat that suited my desires and goals right now a little bit better. And I'll be honest, I have no problems with a power boat. So the advantage of a sailboat here is that with the keel and the mast and the big motion inhibitors, stay sails, you have less dramatic motion. Like I'm dealing with motion right now, but you have less dramatic motion when you're dealing with a sailboat than you do with a power boat. In general, all factors, total weight, total displacement, length, beam, all things considered, you tend to do better on a sailboat. So we're on a 27-foot Catalina. If I was on a 27-foot powerboat, or a 28, like a Chris Craft 28 or Sea Ray, Trojan, Bayliner. Bayliners are really good for space. I would be much more involved in motion when I was at anchor in a rough sea or a rougher area. So that's a factor. Mitigating factors. Power boats tend to have much shallower draft, so you can get into more protected anchorages. The space that you have for the length of the boat is so much more that you can often cruise comfortably on a smaller. Am I still recording here? Excuse that. The wind really got me on that one, and the tripod fell over. So much smaller, much shorter length of boat will give you a much more spacious interior, so you can live and cruise on a shorter boat. There are people who cruise on 24-foot power boats and even do the loop and stuff. It's really hard to find videos or information or blogs about that, but it does happen. Okay, I have talked to people and they do it. And the ICW cruises, a lot of times these are 3-month cruises, not 2-year or live aboard cruises, so keep that in mind. I'm a little weird with the whole permanently on a 27-foot 26-foot like Sea Ray 260, Sundancer 280. Sea Ray Sundancer 280 would be palatious to us, right? And they cost a lot more to run. So, all of these things are true. Let me see if I can get this a little more firmly set up. There we go. Now it might stay upright. So, those factors are there, and you can mitigate that a little bit. There are people who do the loop. A couple famous in the community people who do a loop in a demasted sailboat and never put the mast up. The one couple they store the mast. They don't even carry the mast. It's just gone. They do the loop and they're on the water full time. They live aboard a 30-foot sailboat. I think it's a Catalina 30, I'm not sure. And they just do that. Now, if I was going to do that myself, I would probably pick a swing keel boat, something that has a keel that lifts up. In addition to the regular keel, it has a section that comes down like a Tartan 34. You've got a 3.5-foot draft without the center board down. It folds up into the regular keel, then you drop it and it goes. So you could cut that to cut down weight, crank it up, leave it up, reduce your mast to the point where you don't have to take it down, right? Maybe double mast. This isn't really, this is projects, but it's not really complicated projects. So you've got, your cabin top where your mast step is going to be is 5 feet above the water line. You need to make your 15-foot clearance for some bridges. 18-foot clearance is, I think, your minimum. So, you basically go with the 12-foot mast, and you redo your stays and your guys and stuff, and then you just use it. You know, double masting is actually a really good idea, doing the ketch or schooner rig. And then you just use it as a stay sail or a sail assist, and you just motor. Very efficient boat to go through the water, and you've reduced and rebalanced the boat. You can do some more cabin work, you can pilot house, you can put hard tops on. There's a lot you can do there. Totally possible. And I really want to get into talking and modeling and showing some examples of that, because there are examples out there. You can do it well. If I wanted to keep this Catalina 27 forever, I would probably, on the next haul out, redo the keel bolts, cut the bottom 8 inches, 10 inches, depends on where how the weight balances out, off of the keel, reglass it. You just chainsaw, you just cut it. It takes a bunch of weight off, which unbalances it. Cut the mast down to, this is a very short boat, so cut the mast down to 12 feet and rig it differently. Just run it differently. You could run a lug sail easy with that. You've got a floating boom on the Catalina, so the re-rigging is actually, this isn't really a complicated thing. You can do a whole lot with it. You can even just do could probably do a junk rig once you get down far enough. If you redo the mast attachment, like move it forward just a little bit and drop it down so it's a full mast, whatever. And then do the whole cabin as a pilot house, dual level it. You can do lots of things. It's a lot of work and a lot of weirdness, but you can do it. So I would be perfectly willing to go back to the topic, the subtopic, number 1, 2 tangents back, to do a motorboat. You're going to have a lot more space for the size. So when you pay per foot for docking, and you're dealing with available docks and cost and everything, pulling up with a 26-foot motorboat is you're practically into a dinghy dock at that point. It's really not that big a deal to find a spot, and it's not as expensive. A 36-foot sailboat is going to cost $30, $50, $60 a night more than a 26-foot powerboat, and the space difference isn't what you think it is, because when you get into that powerboat, you have a much bigger interior, much more spacious interior, much more living kind of interior. It's not made to have to, a lot of sailboats are made to have to try to be race boats, even when they're not race boats. Like, they're just kind of, there's a design part of that. There's a whole thing about that. We don't have raised aft cockpits and poop decks anymore. Like, we really don't. All right. And poop is from a French word. It has nothing to do with poop, which is what we're going to talk about next. So when you're boat shopping, and I look at boats all the time because I'm always willing to look at changing, the biggest thing that I see is the heads are weird and whack. Okay, so we're looking at lower budget boats. When I'm looking at stuff that's in the $4,000, $8,000, $18,000 range, it's almost a rule that the Blackwater system, whatever was originally installed, isn't there or doesn't work or isn't hooked up or is ignored. So I recently looked at a sailboat, did a tour, was looking at it, and it was really interesting. But because it was set up with a porta potty, which that model of boat has never been set up with a porta potty. So sometime in the last 40 years, someone removed all of the Blackwater stuff and redid the shelf, the head area, to put a porta potty in, which is cool. That one actually functioned and is good, except that the boat was just long enough that if you want to do extended cruising in Florida, you have to have something besides a porta potty, because Florida doesn't like porta potties on boats over 27 feet. Whatever. Technically, this one is under 27 feet. It's 26 feet and 9 inches. So you can do a porta potty. We don't. We have a composting head that we've put in now. Composting head replacements are anywhere from easy to extremely complex, but it's common. I recently looked at another boat, which is very attractive to me and fantastically priced, and I love it. And it's got all of the Blackwater system in there, but the previous owner didn't want to replace the head itself, the actual toilet part, because it was just blasted out. And they have moving parts and they wear out and stuff. Because it was $150 cheaper to put in a larger, the 5-gallon size porta potty. So there's a whole Blackwater system that's just sitting there. And this is really common. This is just the basic thing. And one of the things you need to do if you're looking at used boats and you look in this price range is just accept that there's going to be something like that. How do you deal with a Blackwater system that is old and you want to remove it? First thing is you want to kind of fill it out. Take some chemicals if you want. Take some of the treatment that you use in a porta potty, okay, the biological treatment, and put it in there and put several gallons of water in there. Make sure there's no leaks. Do it slowly. Check for leaks. Make sure there's leaks. Make sure you are around a pump out, because that's the next step. You want to do this with a pump out and pump it out. Rinse, repeat. Maybe you want to pump it out 3 times. You've got a hose, you've got a pump out, you're at a dock. Just be like, hey, I want to pump this out twice. It's $5. You're going to pay them $10. You can use a hose to fill it up. Fill it up, pump it out, fill it up, pump it out. You've rinsed it out enough now that if you have to work on it, it's not going to be totally gross. All right? So that's good. If you need to rinse it out more, if there's no leaks and it's relatively clean and you want to rinse it out more, then get it full with the treatment stuff in there and let it sit for a couple days and then pump it out again. You should be pretty clean at that point, right? These things, stuff dissolves. It's fine. The toilet paper and the poop and everything will go out. That's what pumping out is. You just have to kind of mix it up, right? You have to make it a thing. So do that. Make sure there's no leaks. If there's no leaks and it's more than 10 years old, replace the hoses anyway. Like once you've got it all rinsed out and you've done your best, get on your gloves, lay down some sheets of plastic, do what you got to do, and then replace the hoses. If you have to replace the head, just replace it. If you want to use the Blackwater system. If you don't want to use the Blackwater system, you're still going to want to get it all cleaned out, pull the hoses, plug the tank, just totally plug the tank, and then figure out how you're going to remove the tank, because that sometimes is structural, sometimes it means you have to cut it up, sometimes the tank is just fine, and if you rinse it out enough, it's just there. It's just a void in your boat, right? Not the best idea, but that's what it is, okay? I personally, I'm kind of up in the air. It doesn't matter to me if I have a Blackwater tank and it's more than 10 gallons, because that's a pretty small tank. I don't mind using it sometimes. I'll probably have a composting head, like a box type composting head, box or bucket type, and try to use that as much as I can, and then use the head when I need to, and get a pump out whenever I feel like it. Totally fine answer. Nothing wrong with that. I would almost certainly recommend having a bucket and bag system with the absorbent stuff. Those are really expensive to run. Or it's down there somewhere, a composting head in a box. There's several that are made that are in a box or in a bucket. They're designed around that, and they use the wood shavings and the coir and stuff, sawdust, whatever it is, to act as a composting head. It's a great thing to have in emergencies. It's a great thing to have if your Blackwater system craps out on you. Haha, excuse the pun. And they're cheap and they store pretty well. So if you've got the space and you're cruising, you might want to do that, right? At the very least, you have a bucket and some trash bags. And it's gross. That's pretty gross. Heavy duty double trash bags. Trust me. So, it's a thing with buying used boats. The head, it's a selling factor. It's a negotiation factor. If you're doing price negotiations, you're like, hey, there's no head here. The head is messed up. I got to deal with this. Take a few $100s off. Take $1,000 off. But it's pretty common. It's really common because people just don't want to deal with the poop. But they're really simple systems. Okay, a Blackwater system is not scary. You just need to rinse it, pump it, and then work on it. Okay, it's just a couple hoses. The hoses won't leak for years if you replace them. They won't smell bad for years if you replace them. If you smell it, there's probably some sort of leak going on, and you need to look at that. You need to figure out where the venting of the nasty smell is coming from. So you can keep it clean, you can keep it nice, no worries. If you've got an alternate system, if you've got something besides a Blackwater storage tank, that's fantastic. Like a composting head is great. Honestly, I'd prefer a porta potty over a Blackwater tank, because the porta potties are cassettes that you can put in a bag and carry to shore and empty when you need to. Or if you're offshore, well, you're offshore. If you're 3 miles offshore, you get to dump your waste. You know, you can poop in the ocean, but 3 miles is kind of a long way for a really small boat. So think about that. That's about it for today. That was fun. We get to talk about poop and motorboats, but it's a big deal when you're used boat shopping. There's just always something wrong with the head, but the solutions are super, super simple and super, super inexpensive until you get into high dollar engineered composting toilets. Don't worry about it. Do what you want to do and relax. It's not hard to handle the poop, I promise. Stay sideways.